Right, so I've been testing the base M4 MacBook Air for a few weeks now and have been putting it through its paces, using it as my main machine, and honestly this really feels like the perfect computer for 99% of consumers. And that's no exaggeration. I think this MacBook is so good, it kinda makes the pros irrelevant for most consumers, and it's one of the best deals in tech right now. And it's all because of the price tag. This got a surprise price cut to $999, and also remember all Macs now come with 16 gigs of RAM as standard, so the base model is something I can actually comfortably recommend. Yes, 256 gigs of storage is pretty limiting, and the storage upgrade pricing is daylight robbery, but at least you can use external storage if needed. RAM, however, is something you can't expand, and so I'm very glad Apple Intelligence does exist, even if it's useless right now, because that is the sole reason Apple's given us these RAM upgrades. But anyway, let's delve into everything I like about this machine and why it's such a no-brainer to pick this up if you're in the market for a new MacBook. And that begins with the performance. The M4 chipset isn't anything revolutionary, here are the raw numbers for those curious, but it still surprises me how well Apple Silicon runs on these fanless Macs. I've been pushing this MacBook every single day by scripting, editing videos, and making thumbnails on this, and not once did the Mac struggle. And the work I do is a lot more intensive than what most regular folks would do with a MacBook Air. Students, for example, would use this for coding or typing up essays, and so the fact I've had zero performance issues should tell you this machine is plenty powerful, and has that headroom performance-wise where it will stay fast long-term. Please do not worry about this being fanless. I also had zero issues with the M1 MacBook Air, and I've had that for 4 years. So yes, Apple Silicon honestly works like magic, and the M4 chipset powering this is definitely the biggest reason I love this machine so much. The M4, much like the M3 before it, does include ray tracing support. I haven't been able to extensively test this because I don't game very often, and to be honest, macOS still is not the ideal platform for gamers. I think the Mac's better suited for productivity. Apple has also fixed one of the biggest limitations with this MacBook Air, which was external display support. The M4 now supports 2 external displays without having to close the lid, and that's great. You know what else would be great? If you click that subscribe button. It's free and it'll give you the latest of Apple right to your subscription box, so please consider it. Join the Saranbyte gang now. Let's now move on to the design, and I must admit I was wrong to quickly dismiss this new design language that was originally introduced to the MacBook Air with the M2 refresh. I was pretty salty about the lack of a wedge since I liked that design element with the M1 MacBook Air, but I've come to appreciate the much thinner chassis with the M4. I also do like the softer corners because the M1 Air and basically all the 2016 era MacBooks have very sharp corners which are very easy to scratch and dent, and so I'm glad that's no longer the case. The M4 does come in a new snazzy sky blue, which I do have to admit I am a fan of, but when it comes to Macs I always have a soft corner for silver because that's a classic choice. You'd also have the choice of going with midnight or starlight, but I personally don't like those colours as much. Moving on to the display, this essentially has the same panel Apple's been using on MacBooks for years. In fact, apart from the notch, which by the way has never bothered me, and also the slightly high brightness, this is the same LCD panel from the M1 MacBook Air, as well as every MacBook since around 2015. That might sound like a bad thing, but Apple really nailed the displays on their Macs early on, and so as a result, this is still very solid. Yes, it lacks fancy features like mini LED and 120Hz, which the MacBook Pros have, but I can personally look past those, and I still enjoy watching YouTube videos, movies, and TV shows on this machine. Again, 99% of consumers are going to be happy with this display. I certainly am. And do remember you get the 15-inch size option as well if you're willing to pay the premium for it. I did test that as well, hence why there's going to be B-roll of both sizes. Apple did update the webcam on the M4, so it now supports center stage, which is pretty neat. That means it can now track you as you move, and you also get support for desk view. Audio mic wise, this Mac is also excellent. I've really enjoyed streaming Spotify on this MacBook with the speakers, and it's crazy how good they sound despite not being front firing. The speaker's actually tucked behind the hinge. I've also been told by friends I sound crisp and clear with these mics when I do the occasional Discord call, and here's a sample for you guys. And here is a webcam test for you guys with the M4 MacBook Air. You can see how wide it is because it's the center stage camera, and I'll show you guys a demo of how center stage works. I've used it before on iPads, and I'm glad it's now here on the MacBook. It's great because when you're moving around, the camera can track you as you're moving, so when you're on a call, that can come in very handy. Hopefully the mics sound pretty good, let me know how that sounds, but yeah, the quality is solid. Webcams on Macs have been great for years, and of course remember that the M series chipset does some processing and makes it look better, so yeah. Should be pretty solid, I'm happy with this. The keyboard is also fantastic, and oh my god, is this trackpad perfection. Every time I use a Mac, I come to appreciate how incredible Apple's trackpads are, because when I used to use Windows laptops, that was one thing that consistently sucked in all of them, and it seems Apple's really the only manufacturer who can nail this part of the laptop experience. Touch ID has also been reliable, and I haven't found the I/O limiting on this machine with the M1 MacBook Air, for example, and if you're wondering why I keep comparing this with the M1, it's because that was the machine I was previously using. But anyway, I would have to use one USB-C port for charging, and so for peripherals I connect to my Mac, they only had access to one other port. Now I have two free ports when charging due to MagSafe, which is ever satisfying to use because of how it magnetically attaches. Connectivity-wise, we have Bluetooth 5.3 and Wi-Fi 6E support, and generally I've had zero issues in this aspect. The battery life is also something I greatly appreciate. Apple claims you'll get 18 hours of video playback on the M4 MacBook Air, but for me endurance matters the most when I'm editing, and so the fact I only lost 13% of charge after editing for 2 hours is incredible. For reference, my old Intel MacBook Pro would be close to dead once I finished editing for a similar amount of time, and so this really is the best thing about Apple Silicon Macs that still blows my mind. They last forever and the battery life should impress everyone. And those are all my thoughts on the M4 MacBook Air. This is by no means an exciting Mac, but it's ever dependable and I've never been let down by it once whilst I've been using it as my main machine. That's what's most important for me with a product that's going to be used for productivity. People are going to be working or studying off this machine, and so I don't particularly care if it doesn't excite me. It should be good value for money and should be rock solid reliability wise, and this MacBook definitely has that covered. This is ridiculously good value when you consider the fact the base 14-inch MacBook Pro is $600 more and really only offers the better display for that additional premium. The performance, for example, will be near identical since both have the M4 chipset. What also sweetens the deal is that this M4 MacBook Air is already regularly on sale and can be found for $899 or less brand new, and so I'll leave links below to buy this machine. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.